everyone, and welcome to Harv's World, where we are back in HAUT BELERON, and it's spring. As I promised, we would hook back up in March because, well, there wasn't a lot going on in the winter. I did pick up a few contracts. You can see our money has gone up quite a bit. There's a little bit of a backstory there. I did pick up some okay contracts over the winter. Made, I don't know, 20 or 30,000 euros, something like that. But I did have some extra time because, you know, it's kind of downtime on the farm. And so I went out exploring the area a little bit. And lo and behold, while I was exploring, I looked down and there's this old video game cartridge sitting at my feet. And so I don't know too much about video game cartridges. I'm a computer guy. Anyway, you know, I figured maybe somebody could get some use out of it, so I just put it up on an auction website. And threw it up there for a little bit, and all of a sudden, the price just starts going through the roof. It was crazy. And when it was all said and done, this video game cartridge sold for 50,000 euros. So we're up an additional 50,000 euros, thanks to a video game cartridge. So we're doing okay. I also picked up a contract this morning. I have been going strong since before the sun came up. But this guy is paying an arm and a leg for this contract, and he's given me some really nice big equipment to work with. In fact, I've filled up with seed twice already, or no, once. This is my second go around with seed. But this is a good sized field, and luckily he's provided me with good sized equipment to get it done. But this is going to bring in probably another close to 18,000 euros just to plant some oats. Who am I to complain? Things are just about ready on our farm, and now that I've got some extra cash in pocket, I can start moving forward a little bit with what Mr. Swede needs to do. And then, of course, today we're going to talk about France, and specifically we're going to talk about the French capital, Paris. One of the most famous cities in the world. I think there are very few people on this planet that if you said, what's the capital of France, they wouldn't know that it's Paris. Also known as the City of Lights. The reason it's known as the City of Lights? Because it was the first city in the world to have street lights. There's a little bit of a backstory that goes with that too. I'm going to finish sowing this guy's oats, no pun intended, and then we will jump right in and see what we can do on our own farm. Okay, that takes care of that contract. Just over 19,000 euros. Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. And better news still, the Fent is back. The Fent is back. They completely refurbished this thing over the winter time. Reset everything. Even put a coat of paint on it. And the Fent is ready to rock and roll. You know, it's fun driving other people's equipment sometime, but getting back in an old familiar tractor, this thing purrs like a kitten. Getting back in an old familiar tractor, it's very nice. You know, getting back to what you're used to. Our crops are doing exceptionally well. They're nowhere close to being ready to harvest yet, with one exception. My grass field over here doing very, very well, but I'm not going to harvest it just yet. The grass is ready to harvest. I'm going to give it one more day, because I'll tell you, I know I can get a lot more off this grass field if I just give it, well, I keep saying day, it's month. Technically, it's a month. So I'm going to grab my fertilizer spreader because I noticed there was somebody else who needed some work done, so I'm going to get that taken care of. That'll be another 6,000 euros. Assuming I can get in here and actually hook up to the bloody thing. Come on, Harv, get with the program. I've been saying that to myself a lot lately. But first, now that I've got some money in my pocket, I'm going to advance Mr. Swede's farm just a little bit. How am I going to do that, you might ask? I'm going to do that like this. No, no, no. Chickens, not cows. Although cows would be good too. But we're going to buy us some chickens. And I think that's the perfect place to do it. Right there. There we go. A lovely, lovely chicken coop. All ready to add some chickens to. Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. And you know what? I needed my trailer, and now I've got this fertilizer spreader hooked up. Let me grab the trailer, because I do have chicken feed. That's the reason I decided we could maybe just get some chickens working right now, because I do have chicken feed. If you'll recall, back when I first took over this farm, there was some wheat that was ready to be harvested. And I still have it. I haven't sold it off. Good move, Harv. Good thinking. And I've got a whole bunch more wheat sitting out there in my fields that are going to be ready to harvest. This summer, at least. There you go, 11,000 liters of wheat. I don't need that much. 9,000 will do. Oh, I missed it by 18 liters. Oh well. It can go back in the silo. It's just easier if I don't have to do it that way. And I imagine it's going to get a little snug up against the house, but I'll live with it. There we go. So I can get my chicken feed in here before I have to put chickens in. That way they are ready to go. And I think I'm going to start with about 100 chickens. That seems about right to me. And I'm going to buy baby chickens. I don't want somebody's old used chickens. And of course, we have to have chickens delivered. We can't go pick them up, which makes them a little more expensive. Here we go. Yeah, so these are brand new baby chicks. They're only 5 pounds a piece. And it looks like they'll let me buy 60 at a time. I'm going to buy 120. And let's do one Mr. Rooster in there just for a little bit of color. He's not necessary, but... So our baby chicks aren't going to produce anything right away. They need to grow up a little bit, but once they do, they'll start providing our farm with eggs, which is definitely a basis for a lot of recipes that Mr. Swede would need. I'm sure he'll appreciate having farm fresh eggs. So I'm up here just doing one more quick job, getting some fertilizer on this guy's field. You might remember it. We were up here spraying for weeds before. Now he wants fertilizer, and he's paying exceptionally well. So yeah, fertilize the grass, Harv. That's good, because throwing away fertilizer, that's the best solution. There we go. So getting back into Paris, into Paris just a little bit. If you'll recall, we talked about how France is mostly made up of areas where the land is used for agriculture, forestry, natural places, things like that. There's a high population density in metropolitan areas, and Paris is the biggest of those. Obviously, you would expect it to be, but in Paris proper, there's 2.2 million people living there. Yeah, 2.2. It's 1/5 the population of France in general. And if you take in the entire metropolitan area of Paris, you know, all of the surrounding everything, whatever, we're talking over 11 million people packed into that one small place. So Paris is a booming place to live, if that's your thing. All right, 6,000 euros added to our bank account. Very nice indeed. Now, interestingly, Paris is also noted for several inventions. You know, we talked about how the first movie ever displayed happened in France by the Lumiere brothers. Well, love it or hate it, the metric system was developed in Paris. Not just France, but in Paris. We've already said streetlights, photography. The very first picture of a human being was taken in Paris. Restaurants, getting back to our roots here on Mr. Swede's farm, the concept of a restaurant first happened in Paris. They created scuba gear, the stethoscope, chemistry, and of course Paris is known as the capital of fashion, and that began in Paris as well. And for those of you who love your car racing, the very first automobile race took place in Paris. So Paris has been a booming place for a lot of artists and scientists. That's another reason it's called the City of Lights, because frankly, they consider their thinking illuminated, because there have been so many artists and inventors, geniuses, things like that have come and made Paris their home. In fact, one little interesting tidbit that I discovered is that Ernest Hemingway, who's a great American author, he's a classic, love him or hate him, he is well known. And while he was in Paris, he asked for a drink that did not smell like alcohol. He wanted something to drink, but he didn't want to smell the alcohol. And they developed the very first Bloody Mary for Ernest Hemingway. So if you like to imbibe occasionally, that's where the Bloody Mary came from. Well, there still wasn't very much going on in March. So I took the rest of the day off. And I guess the rest of the month off, I should say. And went out and decided that it was time to lease some equipment and get working. Now, my grass field is ready to go. Completely ready to go. So I picked up the cheapest mowers I could find. Literally the cheapest mowers I could find. That would still get me a good cut in a reasonable amount of time. That was impotent. I really wanted to make sure that I would have the opportunity to move this grass along. I don't want to be working on it forever. Although, whatever it does, I'll take it. Oh, that's a little bit. That's okay. We'll be alright. We'll be alright. And I'm even going to try to get as much of the sideline grass here, whatever you want to call it. the sideline grass, Harv, yes, where the players stand to watch you mow this field. Yeah, the extra grass around the field. But I'm more concerned about the grass in the field. These mowers are doing all right. They should get us done in fairly decent style. Then I'll need to windrow this and pick it up. So getting back into Paris, we might as well knock this one out first, because it is one of the most famous landmarks in the world, the Eiffel Tower. That's right, the Eiffel Tower. Everybody, right? Does everybody not know the Eiffel Tower? Anyway, this is the Eiffel Tower. If you've never seen it before, you don't know what I'm talking about. That's the thing right there. And this was originally built. It was the tallest building in the world for almost 50 years. The tallest structure in the world, I should say, for almost 50 years. And this thing was meant to be temporary. They didn't intend to keep it around. Like 20 years and it was going to be taken down. Yeah, that's right. And there's almost 1,700 steps to go from the bottom of the Eiffel Tower to the top. And another interesting little fun fact about the Eiffel Tower, two fun facts actually. One of them is that during extreme weather, and by that I mean heat, this thing can grow 6 inches. It can add 6 inches of height just because, you know, heat makes things expand. And then, well, you know, when did they, I mean, you know, did they measure the original height in the cold and then the expanded height in the top? Or was it vice versa? So you could say it either grows 6 inches or it shrinks 6 inches. Although over time, I guess it technically does both. Another interesting thing about the Eiffel Tower is that when they paint it, it must be hand painted. Yeah, they have to paint it by hand, and it takes 60 tons of paint. And believe it or not, there is an official color. That color has changed a little bit over time, but when the Eiffel Tower is painted, it's supposed to be some form of brown. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, we've spoken about this just a little bit in the past, but the most famous museum in the world, the Louvre. The Louvre Museum in France, or Paris to be specific. It was originally a castle, a royal residence, and eventually became a museum. And this thing is amazing because in order to see every piece of art that the Louvre owns, you'd have to visit for 35 days and have special privileges because only about 35,000 of those pieces are ever on display at any given time. So yeah, you're not going to see everything in the Louvre right away. And they've got almost, let me see, how many was that? Almost 500,000 works of art in the Louvre. That's how much they own. 460,000 pieces of art. During World War II, you know, the Germans were raiding all over France. In fact, they occupied France for a time. And if you didn't know, Nazi Germany was very keen on stealing works of art. The Louvre took all of its art and distributed it amongst very prominent citizens in France at the time. And that's how they hid their artwork. They let the people take care of it to keep it from going to Nazi Germany. And to this there's actually a movie called The Monuments Men that's all about a group who was looking for lost works of art stolen by Nazi Germany. Of course, the most famous work of art, maybe in the world in general, is the Mona Lisa, and that is owned by the Louvre as well. I want to say that painting is worth an estimated $100 million. I don't know if that's the exact figure, but that sounds right to me. $100 million for one painting. I wish I had a Mona Lisa. Well, that didn't take long at all. Last pass of grass. No pun intended. Last little bit of grass. Getting mowed up right now. These mowers aren't bad. They're not bad. I don't know that I would pick them first or anything. And I think I'm just going to go back down and nail this one a little bit right here along the edge. Hey, I want all I can get, alright? And that should really only take the front mower so I don't botch things up too horribly. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Alright, now that the grass is mowed, I'm going to get this collected up into nice, neat windrows, and then I can pick it up very, very easily with the forage wagon that Mr. Swede was kind enough to provide for us. The Fent doesn't like to turn around like this, I have to tell you. You know what? I'm not going to worry about this end too much because I know I'm going to have to come down here and windrow this probably back into the field anyway. It's a little too far out. It's not such a great thing. Maybe I should get a smaller tractor on this. That would probably be the smart thing. No, I'm going to stick with the Fent for now. We'll see. We'll see how it all works out. I'm just cleaning up this final end a little bit. Man, the windrowing took a lot longer than the bloody mowing did. Seriously. No exaggeration. Yeah, wreck that windrower, Harv. Wreck it. Okay, time to take this thing back. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make them pick this up. Because I need to grab my forage wagon now. And I was checking this earlier today, and the forage wagon isn't quite ready to go. We need a little something something that's going to make our life a little bit better. Which means I've got to run this over to the shop. Technically, I should just order what I need and go pick it up and bring it back, but I want to get this done. I can pick it up later. It's not that big of a deal. Hopefully no cars are coming, because I didn't look both ways. That's right. Harv plowing through traffic, hoping for the best. Okay, so what I need to add to my forage wagon is this bon silage, or bon silage additive. I'm going to buy one of these. Almost $3,000. Luckily, it doesn't use much, or 3,000 euros, I should say. It doesn't use much, so this will last me a goodly long amount of time. But I need to load this into the forage wagon. There we go. See, it's not taking much off that pallet. And it only loads 10 liters. 10 liters into the forage wagon, but that should allow me to get a better yield off my grass fuel. So Paris dates back a long time. I'm sure we all sort of knew that, but at the same time, it's still interesting to find out. And yes, if you didn't guess, we are making silage because, you know, those millions of cows, what did we say, 18 million cows? Something like that. They're going to need to be fed, and I'm going to get paid for feeding them. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm going to try to dump this grass as I run up on the wall in nice even layers, so hopefully that will help me when it's time to compact it. I'm going to botch the end of it. Oh well, life goes on. A little bit slower. 8 was a little quick getting through there, so we probably ought to jack down to about 6. That ought to do me. So the original clan, the Parisi, when they created their town, it wasn't quite in the same place. In fact, it was out on an island. And then Julius Caesar came in and built Lutetia on the coast of the River Seine. And there it has sat ever since. And of course, Paris has many famous landmarks. I mean, many famous landmarks. Too many for me to list just at the moment. But, that's funky. It's got some weirdness going on there. So we've talked about the Eiffel Tower, obviously one of the most famous landmarks in the world. We've talked about the Louvre. There's also the Arc de Triomphe. Now, this arc was commissioned by Napoleon to celebrate his troops coming home, their victory. It took 30 years to build this thing. It's a gorgeous piece of architecture, and one of the most famous places in Paris. Now, something that I found really cool about Paris that I didn't know was there's a place there called the Place. I mean, I'm going to butcher the French on this, so pardon me. It's the Place de la Concorde, I guess is what it's known as. And the thing that's really interesting about this, it's a plaza, obviously, but it has the world's largest sundial in it. And while that's not, terribly interesting, I mean, it is world's largest sundial, yeah. But what makes up this sundial is an obelisk that was taken from the Luxor in Egypt. It's an ancient Egyptian obelisk. If you don't know what an obelisk, it's that tall pillar standing there. They brought it over from Egypt, plopped it down in the plaza, and made a sundial out of it. That's pretty freaking cool, in my opinion. So yeah, the maybe it is. I mean, it said place, but maybe it is plaza. I don't know. Plaza de la Concorde. Another thing I found interesting about Paris is that there are almost 500,000 trees in Paris. It's one of the greenest cities in the world. And oh, I know a little tidbit of information. I should have probably shared this at the beginning. Oh, there's another full load. We're getting a lot of grass off this field. A ton. You can see my bunker's really starting to fill up pretty nicely. Not completely, but it's getting there. And having the fent back is going to make life a lot easier, assuming I can get through. This is always the challenge. Once it starts getting loaded up, getting back through the bloody thing can be real difficult sometimes. There we go. So there's an actual disorder known as Paris syndrome. Now, I know that people probably have expectations. What am I going to see in Paris? How awesome is it going to be? It's going to be one of the coolest places I've ever been to, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's, because of the expectations that people have developed about what they're going to be able to see and do in Paris, there's actually a disorder that has come to be known as Paris syndrome. And basically what Paris syndrome is severe disappointment that Paris isn't everything you thought it was going to be cracked up to be. And I guess it can get really severe, like major depression and anxiety and the whole 9 yards. But yeah, it's a real thing. It's a very real thing. Okay, that's all the grass collected. Very nice indeed. How much did we end up with? We're just about to find out. If I can get through here one last time. Oh man, we're going to be real close to 100,000 liters in this bad boy. Come on, Harv. Roll on through. We only used 2.5 liters, just over 2.5 liters of that bon silage, so yeah, this'll run. I mean, based just on this grass field, we'd get another 3 harvests before we had to refill that tank again. So that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Even though it is very spendy. That one pallet, I don't know, it could last us the lifetime of this farm. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure I'll do grass like this forever, but for now, and that's going to have to do, because I need to get some compacting done. Although hopefully it won't be too bad. Fingers crossed. Oh, we're already at 59%. This is not going to take much at all. So yeah, right at 100,000 liters. That is spectacular. That's not the biggest grass field on the planet either. I mean, look at that bad boy. That's not big at all. 80%. Every pass we're getting like 7-8% out of this, so one or two more and we'll be out of here. There it is. Boom. Bob's your uncle. Let's blanket that up. And we squeeze just a little bit out on the end here. I like to try to stay in the silo when I blanket it. I know that's not realistic, but it does it does help in the long run, because then you don't push even more out on the ends. Another interesting fact, I guess this is technically not just about Paris, but about France, although it does involve one of those famous people we were talking about a little bit earlier. Every city in France is required to have a street named after Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo is one of the most famous French citizens, and if you don't know who he is famous for writing Les Miserables, or if you're an American, Les Miserables. And if you don't know what that is, well, look it up. It's a famous book and a famous musical. In fact, Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe famously did that particular musical. I know some people weren't pleased with Russell Crowe trying to sing. I'm ambivalent. If Russell can make a few bucks singing, be my guest. Now, some of you might be wondering why I'm rolling this field instead of just putting fertilizer on it, which I could do. I could just put fertilizer on this field. But the roller does me one better. And let me see if I can show you on the map here before I get running up this field again. So I'm on field 38 right here. And I gotta show my grass. There we go. What's nice about the roller is not only does it give me my second application of fertilizer, it throws this field immediately back into a growth state. So the grass starts growing right after it rolls. If I just put fertilizer on it, I'd have to wait for this field to update before it would start to grow. And that should be at about midnight tonight. So that's the big deal with rolling grass fields. You get free fertilizer and your grass starts growing automatically. Another quick fun fact about Paris, there are more dogs in Paris than children. I can't decide if Parisians hate children or love dogs that much. I'm sure they don't hate children. Nobody hates children. Okay, there are a few people who hate children, but I'm not sure we would really call them people. Whatever. I really don't care one way or another. Just, there are more dogs in Paris than there are children. Interesting, very interesting. Now, here's one that's, I almost said near and dear to my heart, but then that would come across wrong, and that's not entirely true. The Moulin Rouge. Very, very famous French landmark. The reason I'm aware of it is because, frankly, I love the movie Moulin Rouge. Not that it's a great story or anything. In fact, it could be considered kind of cliche. What I love about it is the director Baz Luhrmann did a very interesting and stylistic movie that took pop culture references and pop music and put them exceptionally well, from my opinion, into a period piece. Now, the Moulin Rouge is famous for being a bit of a brothel, a bit of a risque, naughty place to go. So it's no surprise that the Moulin Rouge is the home of the very first striptease ever performed. In fact, the young lady who did it, it was during a rehearsal, and she was fined. he was fined for doing it. 100 francs back in the day. So there's your fun fact about the Moulin Rouge. It is a very unique and interesting looking place, though, don't you think? I mean, I'd check it out while I was in France, but mostly for its historic value. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Absolutely, every time. Now, since we're working for Mr. Swede, something to note about Paris is that there are 9,000 restaurants and almost 1,800 bakeries in Paris. So I can see why Mr. Swede would want to come out to a remote, a smaller village like HAUT BELERON to fire up a restaurant. There's a lot of competition in Paris. So we made quite a bit of money. We got our chickens. Chickens should be doing quite nicely. In fact, they're already starting to produce eggs, so that's a bloody good thing. Our grass field is completely harvested and ready to go a second time. The nice thing about the 100 liters that I just got off of it, it's going to do that 2, maybe 3 more times before the end of the season. Grass is just going to keep on paying me. Yep, getting a little off kilter there. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this episode of HAUT BELERON. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. As always, I very much appreciate you coming along for the ride. And until next time, take care.